Vendors periodically collect the humus and market it as a soil supplement, thus ensuring that the nutrients and organic matter return to the soil, reducing the need for energy-intensive fertilizer. This technology sharply reduces residential water use compared with flush toilets, thus cutting water bills and lowering the energy needed to pump and purify water. As a bonus, it also reduces garbage flow if table waste is incorporated, eliminates the sewage water disposal problem, and restores the nutrient cycle. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency now lists several brands of dry compost toilets approved for use. Pioneered in Sweden, these toilets work well under the widely varying conditions in which they are now used, including Swedish apartment buildings, U.S. private residences, and Chinese villages. Interest in ecological sanitation, or ecosan, as it is commonly referred to, is spiraling upward as water shortages intensify. Since 2005, international ecosan conferences have been held in several countries, including India, South Africa, Syria, Mexico, and China. The movement, led by the Swedish International Development Agency, can now point to projects in at least a dozen countries. Although ecosan is not yet mainstream, it is fast becoming so. The first large community to be built with dry compost toilets in every residence is on the outskirts of Dongxing in Near Mongol, Inner Mongolia. Designed to house 7,000 people, the town is scheduled for completion by the end of 2007. In this system, urine, which contains 80% of the nutrients leaving the human body, is diverted into a designated container. It is then collected and recycled directly onto the land as a fertilizer supplement. Both human solid waste and kitchen waste are composted into rich humus, sanitized, and used as an organic fertilizer. For many of the 2.6 billion people who lack sanitation facilities, composting toilets may be the answer. China has emerged as the world leader in this field, with some 100,000 urine-diverting, dry compost toilets now in use. Among the other countries with these toilets in the demonstration stage, or beyond, are India, Uganda, South Africa, Mexico, Bolivia, and 7 countries in West Africa. Once a toilet is separated from the water use system, recycling household water becomes a much simpler process. For cities, the most effective single step to raise water productivity is to adopt a comprehensive water treatment/recycling system, reusing the same water continuously. With this system, only a small percentage of water is lost to evaporation each time it cycles through. Given the technologies that are available today, it is quite possible to recycle urban water supplies comprehensively, largely removing cities as a claimant on scarce water resources. Some cities faced with shrinking water supplies and rising water costs are beginning to recycle their water. Singapore, for example, which buys water from Malaysia at a high price, is beginning to recycle water, reducing the amount it imports. For some cities, water recycling may become a condition of their survival. Individual industries facing water shortages are moving away from the use of water to disperse industrial waste. Some companies segregate effluent streams, treating each individually with the appropriate chemicals and membrane filtration, preparing the water for reuse. Peter Glick, lead author of the biannual report The World's Water, writes, "Indeed, some industries, such as paper and pulp, industrial laundries, and metal finishing, are beginning to develop closed-loop systems, where all the wastewater is reused internally, with only small amounts of fresh water needed to make up for water incorporated into the product or lost in evaporation." Industries are moving faster than cities, but the technologies they are developing can also be used in urban water recycling. At the household level, water can also be saved by using more water-efficient shower heads, flush toilets, dishwashers, and clothes washers. Some countries are adopting water efficiency standards and labeling for appliances, much as has been done for energy efficiency. When water costs rise, as they inevitably will, investments in composting toilets and more water-efficient household appliances will become increasingly attractive to individual homeowners. 2 household appliances, toilets and showers together account for over half of indoor water use. Whereas traditional flush toilets used 6 gallons, or 22.7 liters, per flush, the legal US maximum for new toilets is 1.6 gallons, 6 liters. New toilets with a dual flush to-button technology use only 1 gallon for a liquid waste flush, and 1.6 gallons for a solid waste flush. Shifting from a shower head flowing at 5 gallons per minute to a 2.5 gallons per minute model cuts water use in half. With washing machines, a horizontal axis design developed in Europe uses 40% less water than the traditional top-loading US models. The existing water-based waste disposal economy is not viable. There are too many households, factories, and feedlots to simply try and wash waste away on a crowded planet. To do so is ecologically mindless and outdated, an approach that belongs to a time when there were far fewer people and far less economic activity. Farming in the city. While attending a conference on the outskirts of Stockholm in the fall of 1974, one walked past a community garden near a high-rise apartment building. It was an idyllic Indian summer afternoon, with many people tending gardens a short walk from their residences. More than 30 years later, I can still recall the setting, because of the aura of contentment surrounding those working in their gardens. They were absorbed in producing not only vegetables, but in some cases flowers as well. I remember thinking, this is the mark of a civilized society. In June 2005, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, reported that urban and peri-urban farms, those within or immediately adjacent to a city, supply food to some 700 million urban residents worldwide. These are mostly small plots, vacant lots, yards, even rooftops. Within and near the city of Dar es Salaam, the capital of Tanzania, there are some 650 hectares of land producing vegetables. This land supplies not only the city's fresh produce, but a livelihood for 4,000 farmers who intensively farm their small plots year-round. On the far side of the continent, an FAO project has urban residents in Dakar, Senegal, producing up to 30 kilograms, 66 pounds, of tomatoes per square meter each year with continuous cropping in rooftop gardens. In Hanoi, Viet Nam, 80% of the fresh vegetables come from farms in or immediately adjacent to the city. Farms in the city or its shadow also produce 50% of the pork and the poultry consumed in the city. Half of the city's freshwater fish are produced by enterprising urban fish farmers. 40% of the egg supply is produced within the city or nearby. Urban farmers ingeniously recycle human and animal waste to nourish plants and to fertilize fish ponds. Fish farmers near Kolkata in India manage wastewater fish ponds that cover nearly 4,000 hectares and produce 18,000 tons of fish each year. Bacteria in the ponds break down the organic waste in the city's sewage. This, in turn, supports the rapid growth of algae that feed the local strains of herbivorous fish. This system provides the city with a steady supply of fresh fish that are consistently of better quality than any others entering the Kolkata market. The magazine Urban Agriculture describes how Shanghai has in effect created a nutrient recycling zone around the city. The municipal government manages 300,000 hectares of farmland to recycle the city's night soil. Half of Shanghai's pork and poultry, 60% of its vegetables, and 90% of its milk and eggs come from the city and the immediately surrounding region. In Caracas, Venezuela, a government-sponsored, FAO-assisted project has created 8,000 micro-gardens of 1 square meter each in the city's barrios, many of them within a few steps of family kitchens. As soon as one crop is mature, it is harvested and immediately replaced with new seedlings. Each square meter, continuously cropped, can produce 330 heads of lettuce, 18 kilograms of tomatoes, or 16 kilograms of cabbage per year. Venezuela's goal is to have 100,000 micro-gardens in the country's urban areas, and 1,000 hectares of urban compost-based gardens nationwide. There is a long tradition of community gardens in European cities. As a visitor flies into Paris, numerous community gardens can be seen on the outskirts of the city. The Community Food Security Coalition reports that 14% of London's 8 million residents produce some of their own food. For Vancouver, Canada's largest West Coast city, the comparable figure is an impressive 44%. In the US city of Philadelphia, community gardeners were asked why they gardened. Some 20% did it for recreational reasons, 19% said it improved their mental health, and 17% their physical health. Another 14% did it because they wanted the higher quality fresh produce that a garden could provide. Others said it was mostly cost and convenience. In some countries, such as the United States, there is a huge unrealized potential for urban gardening. A survey indicated that Chicago has 70,000 vacant lots, and Philadelphia, 31,000. Nationwide, vacant lots in cities would total in the hundreds of thousands. The Urban Agriculture Report summarizes why urban gardening is so desirable. It has a regenerative effect when vacant lots are transformed from eyesores, weedy, trash-ridden, dangerous gathering places into bountiful, beautiful, and safe gardens that feed people's bodies and souls. Closely related to the growth in urban gardening is that of local farmers' markets, where farmers near a city produce fresh fruits and vegetables, meat, milk, eggs, and cheese for direct marketing to consumers in urban markets. A hunger for high-quality fresh produce and a desire to support local farmers has increased the number of U.S. farmers' markets from 1,755 in 1994 to nearly 5,000 in late 2007. This movement toward consuming more locally produced food is now spilling over into restaurants that offer locally produced foods on their menus, and into the small but growing number of supermarkets that sell local produce. Both restaurants and supermarkets are able to contract directly with local farmers to supply them with fixed amounts of seasonal products. Given the near inevitable rise in future oil prices, the economic benefits of expanding both urban agriculture and the use of locally produced food will become more obvious. Aside from supplying more fresh produce, it will help millions discover the social benefits and the psychological well-being that urban gardening and locally produced food can bring. Upgrading squatter settlements. Between 2000 and 2050, world population is projected to grow by 3 billion, but little of this growth is projected for industrial countries or for the rural developing world. Nearly all of it will take place in cities in developing countries, with much of this urban growth taking place in squatter settlements. Squatter settlements, whether they are favelas in Brazil, barriadas in Peru, or Cesakundu in Turkey, typically consist of an urban residential area inhabited by very poor people who do not own any land. They simply squat on vacant land, either private or public. Life in these settlements is characterized by grossly inadequate housing and a lack of access to urban services. As Haris Srinivas, coordinator of the Global Development Research Center, writes, these rural-urban migrants undertake the drastic option of illegally occupying a vacant piece of land to build a rudimentary shelter simply because it is their only option. They are often treated, if not with apathy then with antipathy, by government agencies, who view them as invaders and trouble. Some see squatter settlements as a social evil, something that needs to be eradicated. One of the best ways to make rural/urban migration manageable is to improve conditions in the countryside. This means not only providing basic social services, such as healthcare and education for children, as outlined in Chapter 7, but also encouraging industrial investment in small towns throughout the country, rather than just in prime cities, such as Mexico City or Bangkok. Such policies will slow the flow intra-cities to a more orderly pace.